Cannot or should not.
He cannot.
Because, I mean, we've seen cases where the National Assembly is wondering, where did the presidency get this money from, or the executive?
I think when we talked about the oil subsidy issue here,
yes,
when 1.4 trillion was spent,
yes, when
the appropriation was 344 for something billion. Some will say, oh, some of us are hardliners. That is impeachable. It's misconduct. He cannot. In fact, he cannot move from head 1 to head 2. If they appropriate 100,000 for B purpose, and they appropriate 10 million for A purpose, and you need money in B purpose, he cannot move it. He cannot. He has to sort out without going back to that body, the legislature, which has appropriated and say, this is what and what you should do with X amount.
In that case, is it possible for the executive arm to always try to see, that is, if it borders on any kind of matter, to influence the legislators on a particular resolution?
That's why I said constructive engagement is necessary. They must be on the page. Like Governor Fashla will say to us at that time, we must be on the page. I'm sure in Lagos you have an executive legislative party where they sit down together, adopt, issue a communique, adopt a policy direction for the next quarter. It is about being on the same page. In the US, where we borrow from, there is the breakfast. The president and legislature have weekly breakfasts with the principal officers. In Lagos, when I was in the house, we had monthly interactive session with the governor over breakfasts, where we table our observations. I mean, you see, because they must, as a matter of fact, as a matter of course, work together. Okay. They must. So if they start working at cross purposes, governance will break down.
Yeah, but what
just imagine for a minute. I mean, in Nigeria, more often than not, our budget does not come out till March of the following year, and it must close by December. So effectively, we have 9 months or 7 months. I'm sure up to recently, you are still. I won't be surprised if on Wednesday you hear that they've afforded some billion naira contract for some projects when the budget is only has a 2 months or so lifespan to go. And that was what led to the Ministry of Health scandal at that time, where they had to mop up. You know, so if there is some engagement, all this we do not need all these, some call it hitting the polity.
What would you think that the executive had gotten it wrong this time around? Because, I mean, initially, this administration had come to power by a resolution before the 2011 elections. Where do you think that at some point it began to fall apart?
Oh, well, I think it's all interesting that the opposition is even coming from within the same party. Where they got it wrong, you know, I don't play at that level. I'm not in government.
But you observe what's going on in government.
What I can see is that either the presidency or the president himself does not have good advisors. The legislature, I'm not saying, might sometimes not be overzealous, like any other body. But the president is the number one. Even when his ministers go to make comments that touch on the legislature, it's not even the place of the ministers to
So, Ogala, how does it work? Because
it's not even the place of a minister.
Sorry, if you talk about advisors, you know, we always have people who are liaison officers or people who are advisors to the governor or to the president on legislative matters. And in most times, these are people who were once in the National Assembly. So shouldn't they have a firm understanding of what, or fair understanding of what exactly it is?
I would say they ought to have a firm understanding. Not that they should. Not every legislator that went through the legislative house or that was elected or that sat there actually went through the legislature.
Some just collect allowance and that's it.
I'm not talking about, not all of them went
but they all
through
collect
the
allowance, don't they?
Yes, I collected.
So,
but not all of us also went through the legislature.
Oh, okay.
You know, and maybe no, it's not also all of us that the legislature went through. So if you appoint the wrong persons who do not understand the workers, if you appoint the wrong persons who cannot marry both arms of government,
okay,
there will always be conflict. Don't forget, I think if you recall, I think it was El Rufai when he was minister that called the National Assembly names at that time. I can't remember what exactly he said. And then there was issue of also the demand for bribe. it's practically almost brought the government down. And that was enough reason for the government to come to a standstill. But what I think is most important, and that's where the president has a big role to play. He must, as a matter of course, because the ministers, special advisors, are his aides. They have no mandate. They are his aides. They are inferior to the legislatures. With all respect.
By way of elected
Because
positions. And
they can demand, the president can hire and fire. And it's that same legislature that confirms the appointment. So when you make statements, you have to be extremely careful. I'm not saying the legislature could not have been wrong. I'm not saying the resolutions may not have been wrong. But it is not in the place of the information minister
having said
to
that,
say
then,
that.
Couldn't the National Assembly have overlooked that statement as perhaps political naivety? Because if it's not in your place...
Well, if it's political naive, then he should get out. He's been a deputy governor, a two-time minister.
I mean, with respect to that statement, should they take it very seriously?
Of course, they must take it. It's not like you sit down and tell it and say, Honorable Ogala or Mr. Ogala, who calls himself a lawyer, I doubt if he's a lawyer. And he said I should take it lightly. I must defend my honor.